There is a type of loneliness that doesn't come from being alone. It comes from being surrounded by people who applaud you in public, while the person who loves you most is quietly exhausted in private. Some people grow up feeling invisible, not abused, not necessarily neglected in obvious ways, just unseen. The loud sibling got attention. The fragile sibling got protection. The high achiever got praise. And they learned, without anyone saying it out loud, that simply existing was not enough to be noticed. So they adapted. They became helpful, agreeable, pleasant, the one who doesn't cause trouble, the one who says yes, the one who earns their place. But when that pattern carries into adulthood, it can evolve into something much more complicated. Because attention becomes oxygen, approval becomes fuel, and being needed becomes proof that you matter. These are often the people who will run themselves ragged for everyone outside the home. They volunteer, solve problems, show up at every crisis, remember every birthday, answer every call. To the world, they look extraordinary, generous, dependable, selfless, and they are praised for it. But praise can be addictive when it fills an emotional void. Psychologists sometimes describe this as external validation dependence, when your sense of worth lives outside of you, in other people's reactions. Every thank you, every compliment, every look of admiration delivers a small chemical reward in the brain. It feels good. It feels stabilizing. It feels like proof that you exist. So you go back for more. Meanwhile, the tasks that don't come with applause, cooking dinner, folding laundry, maintaining a household, nurturing a long-term relationship, provide little immediate feedback. They are essential, but invisible, necessary, but rarely celebrated. And human beings tend to drift toward what rewards them. This is where a painful imbalance can form. One partner becomes the public hero. The other becomes the private infrastructure. The world sees the generosity. The spouse feels the absence. Sometimes the person chasing outside approval doesn't even realize what they're doing. Home feels safe, so it becomes the place where they collapse. The person who loves them most becomes the one they assume will always understand, always wait, always refill their empty cup. But safety should not mean neglect, because eventually, the supportive partner starts to feel less like a spouse and more like a charging station, plugged into someone who spends their battery everywhere else. Another difficult piece of this dynamic is boundaries. Someone who fears being disliked may say yes to everything, not because they truly want to, but because no feels dangerous. Saying no risks disappointing someone. Saying no risks losing approval. Saying no risks becoming invisible again. So they overcommit. They overgive. They overextend. And when the bill comes due, emotional exhaustion, time depletion, burnout, the household absorbs the cost. Sometimes this can even spill into public behavior. Oversharing private struggles, making jokes at a partner's expense, or subtly portraying oneself as overburdened can generate sympathy and attention. It keeps the spotlight where it feels familiar. But attention gained at the expense of trust is incredibly expensive. It erodes intimacy in ways that applause can never repair. There is also a quieter truth that is harder to say out loud. Some people unconsciously choose partners who will stabilize their lives so they can continue performing for others. Not in a calculating way, but in a survival way. They need someone dependable behind the scenes because they are constantly expending themselves on stage. If they had to carry both the performance and the infrastructure, the system would collapse. So they find someone who cooks, cleans, plans, remembers, absorbs, and steadies. Someone who makes their life livable. And that partner often loves deeply enough to do it, until love starts to feel like depletion. But here is the most important point. This pattern is not about villains and victims. It is about unmet needs colliding with unspoken expectations. The person chasing validation is often trying to outrun an old fear. If I stop being useful, will anyone still want me? The person holding everything together is often trying to protect something precious: the relationship, the home, the hope that things will balance out. Both are hurting, just in different directions. Healthy relationships require something that external praise can never provide: reciprocity. Not perfection, not constant equality, but a mutual pouring in over time. Because love cannot survive indefinitely on one person's reserves. If you recognize yourself in the role of the overgiver to the world, ask yourself a difficult question. Do I show my best energy to strangers and my leftovers to the person who shares my life? If you recognize yourself in the role of the exhausted supporter, ask another question. Am I being appreciated or merely relied upon? And if you are unsure which role you occupy, consider this simple test. In your relationship, who gets the applause and who gets the silence? Real intimacy is not built on public admiration. It is built on private investment, the quiet, unglamorous acts of showing up when no one is watching. Because the people who matter most in our lives should not have to compete with the world for the energy we promise to share with them. Attention feels powerful in the moment, but consistency is what sustains love over a lifetime. And sometimes the most meaningful words a partner can hear are not "thank you for everything you do for everyone," but simply, "I see you," not what you provide, not what you perform. You.